Murphy Radio Show on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. We've got about, 3 or so hours together today on this Wednesday, August 9, 2023. It's our episode 395. And let's start this way. You know the shows, by the way, Bell K's behind the glass, making sure that everything that comes out of our speakers sounds as good as humanly possible. Let me go ahead and get the pleasantries out of the way. You've got us on 99.7 on your FM dial. You may be listening that way in your automobile home place of business. Maybe you're listening on the app. You can take us wherever you go if you download our app, and on your smartphone, you just pop it on there, and there you go. Put your earbuds in, and off you go. I was doing that this morning, cutting grass. Had the earbuds in, listening to Dan Mandis in Nashville's Morning News and all of that frivolity going on. Or you can choose to go the television route, and we're on the TV, the big screen, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, Twitch, and you can find us in those platforms by typing in Supertalk 99.7 WTN. Something that my new best friend Tim Jones up in Sumner County did yesterday when I told him that I wore the shirt that he gave me for the Sumner County Conservative, I'll screw it up. It's the SCCR, Sumner County Conservative Republicans. I think that's right. Tim will correct me if I'm wrong. Anyway, I was wearing that on the tube yesterday. Never made a mention of it, but I probably should have. One way or the other, watch us on TV, listen to us on the radio, and join in at your leisure. 615-737-9986, 615-737-WWTN. That is the super text line. That is also the way that you can communicate with us directly on the old school telephone. Just dial us up on that phone number, and we'll get you on the air promptly. I mention all of these things in advance of this. You know those old MacGyver shows, Bell? You know
Yeah.
Were you a fan of MacGyver? Oh, someone's calling out. Were you a fan of MacGyver?
Kind of. I mean, I like Richard Dean Anderson, but much more so in Stargate.
So anything that has to do with someone having to do something very, very quickly in order to avoid ultimate catastrophe, you've got the bomb ticking down 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3. I just got to go ahead and tell you, if it involves me having to type something in quickly into a computer screen, like the old Lost episodes where you had to type those numbers in, and if you didn't get them in a certain amount of time, they thought that the island was going to blow up. If I'm responsible for doing that, we're all going to die. Because every day I sit down and I try to get the code typed into this computer so I can access all of my notes for the show, and I'm never able to do it. I cannot type under duress. So be it. Well, I'll wing it until 12:20, and then I'll get it done then. But there is lots to do and lots to discuss here in the state of Tennessee. We've got a special session officially. I had the opportunity to communicate with the governor's office on a more direct basis earlier this week. And so it was made, I feel like maybe I'm being naive, but I had the chance to speak to the governor. And the conversation, the specifics of the conversation, we agreed would be off the record, but obviously the tone and nature of the conversation I'm going to relate to you now. For those who have missed it, the governor has now called the long-awaited special session. He's called the General Assembly into session in order to handle a number of different matters involving public safety, school safety, mental health, potentially guns. Yes, it's in there, amongst other things. And this has caused a lot of, it's not just today, because of the anticipation of the event, it's caused a lot of consternation over the last several months about what is the governor doing and why is he doing this, and this isn't an action of a conservative and all of these sorts of things. I've been doing this for a minute, and I'm not saying I'm as good at it as Chris Hand or Dan Mandis or Brian Wilson or anyone else. But I think one thing that I've learned over the 24 years in doing this is when someone is being genuine and when someone is being not deceitful, but when they're angling to accomplish something. And I've got to tell you, and maybe once again I can be convinced that I'm naive, because I'm regularly kind of detached and amused at how many of you think that Bill Lee is a moderate or a leftist. And I've not seen that. I understand you're mad about COVID, But I've asked the question on the show in the past, what has Governor Lee done? And I ask it out of a genuine curiosity. I'm not leading anyone anyway. What has Governor Bill Lee done in 5 years that makes you believe that he's a leftist or a squishy rhino, everyone likes to say? What actions has Bill Lee taken that would indicate that he's a rhino? Invariably, I get a lot of COVID-19, and I get it. But guess what? That means Donald Trump is a rhino. If your only answer to what makes him a rhino is COVID-19, well, Donald Trump handed the country over to Anthony Fauci, for goodness sake. It's the worst thing he did as president of the United States. And I don't even blame him for it. And I'm curious to this moment what it is about the governor's leadership that would suggest to many of you that he's not a conservative. Because I don't get that. Now, one might suggest that this very day and this very moment and this very call for a special session would indicate that Governor Bill Lee is not very conservative because, after all, an order of protection has been included in the call. I will say this to you. I had the opportunity to sit with the governor and speak to him about this. He did not ask anything of me. I was taken with his earnestness and openness about his genuine belief. I think it's a heartfelt belief of his that there is something to be done in the aftermath of COVID, of Covenant. I don't know that there's anything to be done. Honestly, I don't know that we can get to a place where you can, in a precognitive fashion, determine that someone will commit acts of violence against other people based on mental impairment or mental derangement to the point that you take their guns away from them in a lawful fashion. I don't know how that works. In a country that believes in our Constitution, in a country that believes in the Second Amendment to the Constitution. One of the reasons that the political left has the ability to bludgeon us with this issue, one of the reasons that I don't think they want to solve this issue, is because they can appeal to the emotions of individuals who genuinely want to see something done in the aftermath of a horrific event like this, when frankly, in a society that believes and values freedom and liberty, believes in the concept of individual responsibility and individual liberty, there's not a lot to be done. On the other side of that, I'll ask the very simple question to many of you who believe that this special session should not be happening at all. And there are a lot of you, and we will speak to some today. Aaron Goldbranson will be on via telephone at 12:35. He's with the Tennessee Faith and Freedom Coalition, and he will talk to us about their call for the governor not to have a special session due to the possibility of violence. I simply disagree with them, and we're going to demonstrate how friends can have a disagreement about policy matters and not become enemies, which is all too rare nowadays. The bottom line is this. Should crazy people, let me phrase it a different way, and I'm trying to be careful here. How do you determine that someone is so mentally incapable of operating in society that you should limit their rights in any form or fashion?
Well, they just say something I don't like.
What is the determining factor by which we conclude that someone needs to have their rights curtailed in a way that you don't? And Belkay's right. Nowadays, well, they say something that I don't care for. I mean, wait till liberals start suggesting to you that racism is a mental disease and you need to have your rights curtailed if you're racist. And then they get to define what's racist and what's not racist. And that's around the corner. So these are more complex issues than we might give them credit for. I think most of us would agree if I said, should an insane person have access to a gun? How would you answer that? I think most of us would say no, wouldn't we? But the devil is in the details. How do you define who's insane and who's sane? Who adjudicates all of that? Where do they go to get their rights back should it be determined that they've had a restoration of their faculties? Now, that's just one of the 10 components of what has been called by the governor, Bill Lee, a special session to deal with public safety, mental health, and the like. We'll talk with you about it on the show today. I'd love to have that conversation. Aaron Goldbranson, the aforementioned, will be with us at 12:35. Jack Johnson is Senate Majority Leader. He'll be here at 1 o'clock. And Cameron Smith of the Tennessean will be here at 2. I should note that tomorrow we have scheduled Representative Scott Sapicki on the show. We also have Congressman Mark Green coming on for unrelated matters, obviously, dealing with border security and some of the activities going on in Washington, D.C. That's on the Thursday broadcast. And I've also a call out to the governor himself to speak to these matters personally.
Man, the show needs some guests.
I know. So I'll alert you as soon as we get some sort of confirmation from the governor's office. But I just want to say this, circle back to it. I don't bring up the conversation for any reason other than I walked out of a sit down with the governor disagreeing with him on certain aspects of this call. We didn't agree on everything, but I did not doubt his sincerity in terms of wanting to do something to protect Tennesseans. And that's what I'll say about that. There are other matters going on in the news, and we'll get to Joe Biden out of the Grand Canyon, 9 wonders of the world. I heard Chris Hand speaking of this earlier. It would be amusing. I've said it a long time. Joe Biden's gaffes would be amusing if they weren't so scary, especially considering who's set to take the role over should Joe Biden be incapacitated through the mental indeficiency and would be unable to carry out his duties as president of the United States of America. I said duty. I did. There's Joe Biden.
For gosh sake, watch your language.
Yeah, I know. And then basically everything liberals touch to garbage. We touched on that yesterday, and I want to circle back to it today. So your calls, 615-737-9986, as we can get them in here. A loaded show. It's the Murphy Show, Super Talk 99.7, WTN 1218. Back in a moment. United Structural Systems, USS, they guarantee their best, and I want you to call them. Now, I know you don't want to. I say this a lot, and people, wait a minute, don't you want me to call them? I do want you to call them if you have problems. I know you don't want to, because if you've noticed problems, like bricks cracking or walls bowing or moisture in your basement or crawl space, that is a sign that you have some significant issue going on in your home, and you don't want to call them because that means that you're going to have to lay out some money to fix it. Well, it doesn't have to cost you an arm and a leg, and you want to make sure that you protect the most expensive investment, one-time investment that anybody's going to pay for, and that is your home. Foundation repair, waterproofing, concrete leveling, they do it all at United Structural Systems. And don't take my word for it. How about 25,000 satisfied residential customers? That's how many folks that USS has taken care of since 1994 when they got all of this started. Serving Middle Tennessee, Southern Kentucky, and Northern Alabama, they guarantee their best. USS. USSTN.com is the website. USSTN.com or 615-488-7855. 488-7855. Tennessee Men's Clinic is here for you. Now, they've been saying for a long time, and I've talked to Evan Bass and the rest of the gang over at Tennessee Men's Clinic, and they say that guys just avoid their numbers. That's just the way we are, right? Whatever numbers we might be talking about, whether it's blood pressure, cholesterol, T levels, whatever it might be. But some of those numbers matter, folks. And if you've avoided your numbers over the past several years and you've noticed a lack of energy, motivation, or drive to do the things that you used to do, whether it's yard work, getting to the gym, and yes, if it's affected your bedroom activity, you need to get with the program. Most guys wait a year or longer to deal with this. And, there's a variety of factors. There's no shame in that game. Over half of the men in America are going to have some sort of effect from low levels like this, and you need to do something about it. Go to the Tennessee Men's Clinic. A simple appointment will get you the numbers that you need to develop a plan of action, and they can help you with that as well. Go to TennesseeMen'sClinic.com, TennesseeMen'sClinic.com, or give them a call. 2 locations to serve. One is over in Franklin, Cool Springs, the other Midtown. 615-208-9090 is the number. 615-208-9090, Tennessee Men's Clinic. I don't know if 1916 is being funny or not, but I'm looking over on the Super Talk text line that I just got up and running, and 1916 says, that Jim Hand show today was the best show he's done. Very good. Yes, I agree. Mr. Hand is good at what he does. He's a great new addition to the lineup, starting with Dan Mandis in Nashville's Morning News. I appreciate the fact that I'm no longer the new guy because Chris gets to be the new guy. Then there's yours truly, and the one and only Brian Wilson in the afternoons from 3 until 7 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. You can also catch us on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, Twitch. You can find us at Super Talk TV, and you can comment there. The F&M Bank chat line is up and running as we speak.
You kind of got your honeymoon period truncated there a little bit.
Yeah, I felt like it.
Yeah.
I'm not hating on it. You know what? We need some more tickets sold to this event, and I just figured out a way to do it. Because I was asking Dan Mandis moments ago, I said, are there still tickets available? He said, yeah, surprisingly. He said, I think it's the middle of summer. It's a big room anyway. It's over at the J Street Korean Grill and Bar in Hendersonville. You can find tickets at 997WTN.com. There were some issues with sign-up at the beginning of the sign-up, which is one of the reasons that we moved it, because some people were trying to sign up. Some people were trying to purchase tickets. They were unable to do so, and we think we've gotten that all worked out. But I've got a new idea.
What?
We now are running the discounts, right?
Mm-hmm.
With offer code Chris. And we've seen a little movement. I think you put in the offer code Murphy, and I think the ticket sales go through the roof. What do you think?
Yeah, I think we'd be clean in a day. Easy.
So I'm going to suggest to the powers that be that you throw in a little offer code Matt. I'll tell you what, if you buy tickets today, and you tell me that you bought tickets today, put in the offer code Chris because that's the only way that you get the discount. And you buy a ticket today, you confirm with me that you bought your tickets by showing me a screenshot of the tickets, and I'll buy you a drink. Whatever you want to drink, whether it's coffee, soda, I'll buy you a water or an adult beverage.
That's putting your money where your mouth is.
Now, that's putting your money where your mouth is.
That could be an investment.
All you need to do is show me confirmation that you bought the tickets today or anytime from now until the event. You can't have a ticket way back and try to get in on the drink item, but I'll buy you a drink. All you got to do is let me know via the super text line, 615-737-9986.
Is it one drink per ticket?
Well, yeah. They already get a drink. Because it's a buffet.
So if I go and buy 100 tickets, then I have alcohol poisoning.
Yes.
Okay.
And the room is full. Well, not full because you have all the tickets.
But
you're sitting there by yourself.
It's
sold out, and that's a good thing. So yeah. So I'll buy you. I don't even know if I can do that, but I just did it. So there you go. 615-737-9986. Let's talk to Brian in Dixon with a thought on the governor, Bill Lee, and his call for a special session. Hey, Brian, how are you?
I'm good. How are you, bro?
I'm well, thank you.
I'm almost to Aaron, Tennessee. I told him I was in Dixon, but I'm traveling, so if I cut out, I'm sorry. Hey, I just think they need to have a discussion before. They don't know any plan of action. It seems like the liberals are pushing them to have a meeting on the special session. I do believe I like your perspective. He probably shouldn't have put me up front because I agree with you a lot. I don't disagree with you, and I know you've always said since you've been there. And really, you never were the new guy. You fit right in from day one as far as I'm concerned. But anyway, I just don't get people criticizing Governor Lee in that respect because Trump was not a politician when he got elected, and that's what we wanted. That's what we, the people, I think, wanted, was not a politician. And that's why he got eat up in the swamp or whatever they call it. I think sometimes that's a misused word also because people down in Louisiana don't like that because the swamp down there is okay. But, I don't think he's a politician at heart. I think he's a businessman that tries to do his best. And I think his motives are good. I don't like when he comes off a little I don't know, not liberal, but he tries to get things done, so he knows how to play the game, just like Trump. So I think he has a lot of same characteristics. And I don't know why they're having this meeting and they don't really know what they're going to do. I'm like you can't be stomping on people's rights, even though there are some that need them stomped on. You need to be careful there because somebody, insanity. Yeah, you asked that question. If you're insane, do they deserve a gun? No, I don't want them around it. But how do you know sometimes,
Well, and that's the crux of the question is how do you know? Let's I want to take apart the conversation. Great call, by the way, Brian. You call anytime. We'll get you to the front of the line. I appreciate you calling. You're very kind, and thank you for the call today. I don't know that it's a matter of not knowing what they want to do. As a matter of fact, I can read to you the specifics of the call for a special session. I have it right here. It's a proclamation from the governor of the state of Tennessee where, let's just read some of it for those who don't know. Whereas, and there's a lot of whereases and heretofores, as you might expect. Whereas public safety is of prime importance to Tennessean and enhancing public safety requires a multifaceted approach that likewise protects constitutional rights. And whereas Tennessee and our nation continue to experience acts of mass violence, and whereas Tennesseans are experiencing mental health issues to an unprecedented degree, and this crisis affects not only those suffering from mental health issues, but also society at large. And whereas in response to Executive Order 100, the Tennessee Bureau of Investigation identified barriers to timely and accurate information sharing throughout the criminal justice system, particularly regarding information that should be entered in state and national crime databases. And whereas it is in the best interest of Tennessee that the General Assembly convene to expeditiously address these concerns. Therefore, I, Bill Lee, Governor of the state of Tennessee, by virtue of power and authority vested in me by Article 3, Section 9 of the Tennessee Constitution, do hereby call the 113th General Assembly of the state of Tennessee to meet and convene in extraordinary session at the Capitol in Nashville on August 21st at 4 p.m. Central Time to consider and act upon legislation regarding. Here's the big part. You ready? 1. Mental health resources, providers, commitments, or services. Anybody against that? There are many people that say that
maybe Justin Jones?
Well, maybe. There are many people that say that we should just gavel this out and go home. And I can understand why you don't believe, if you don't believe anything will get done in the special session, then I kind of get it. That was my consternation all along. Are we going to accomplish anything? I think red flag laws, as I understand them, are DOA in this special session. I think that if I believe the head count that I have developed, I don't think you're going to get anywhere near a red flag law. But some of this other stuff, I think it makes sense that you get it done, you go home, and you allow the liberals to act like liberals. One of the arguments that I've heard, and we're going to talk to Aaron Goldbranson about this in a moment, is, well, you shouldn't do this because of the possibility of violence. I don't not do anything because of the possibility that some idiot leftist Stalinist knucklehead is going to try to push back, clap back in a violent way. Why would we acquiesce to the mob? Why in the world would you do that?
How many days now since you were threatened with an ass whipping?
5.
5, okay.
No, wait. No, 6.
6, okay.
We're on day 6. Yeah. Number 2, school safety plans or policies. That's a good one, especially here in Davidson County. We need to know why Adrian Battle hasn't gotten on board. Number 3, and by the way, one of those school safety plan or policy, just pass a law requiring an SRO in every school system and be done with it, and pay for it and be done with it. Pass a law if you're concerned about elementary schools in Davidson County. If make the Democrat, turn this on the Democrats, make them vote against a school safety resource officer in elementary schools and make them explain why. I would love to see that legislation. Would we not get behind that? Pass a law in the state of Tennessee that every public school has to have an SRO in it, and we'll pay for it. Home rule be damned. Number 3, healthcare providers. I'm going to go over all of these over the course of the day, but I don't want to take up any of Aaron Gobranson's time. He'll be with us in just a moment. It's 12:32. You're listening to Super Talk 99.7 WTN. The first time I walked into the Dr. Gill Center for Back, Neck, and Chronic Pain Relief, I had just gotten to Nashville. I'd moved a lot of stuff. My back was killing me. My upper back particularly, just ailing. And I did this. I met the gang. I met Wendy, Dr. Wendy. I met Dr. V, Dr. Dominic. I met Kayla, who's out there at the front desk. And I found Dr. Gill. And I said, "Help me, Dr. G. You're my only hope." That was kind of my homage to Star Wars. And he did, man. My upper back is it feels so good. My lower back is an issue that I'm going to have to deal with for the rest of my life. But let me tell you, I don't know what I'd be doing if I didn't go to the Dr. Gill Center for Back, Neck, and Chronic Pain Relief, because they have made my life tolerable in terms of not having to take pills every day, not having to worry about surgery, not having to concern myself with, is this going to get worse over the next several weeks or next several months or next several years? Because I've got the Dr. Gill Center on my side. If you have knee pain, back pain, neck pain, hip pain, elbow pain, anywhere that it hurts, you don't have to live with it. Don't feel like this is just your lot in life. Get with the Dr. Gill Center. Allow him to go over you today. Make sure that you tell them that I sent you to the Dr. Gill Center for Back, Neck, and Chronic Pain Relief. $49, a complete examination, x-rays, and they'll develop a plan of action for you. 615-882-4838, 882-4838 for the Dr. Gill Center. Super Talk 99.7 WTN. It is 12:37. Senator Jack Johnson on at 1 o'clock. Cameron Smith on at 2. Love to hear from you about the call for a special session by the governor, the long-anticipated call. It will happen on the day expected, August 21st at 4 p.m. The special session of the General Assembly will convene at the state capitol. There's an expectation that there will be a robust amount of protests. Already the liberals, despite the fact, and I just want to tell you, I'm looking at this, despite the fact that the red flag law or order of protection is one of 12 separate items. No, I'm sorry, it's more than 12. My apologies. It's 18 separate items that the governor is asking the General Assembly to take up. Despite that fact, liberals in the halls of the General Assembly are already calling this he acquiesced to the will of the Republican majority and nothing's going to happen. They've already decided nothing's going to happen, which indicates to me what I've already figured out, and that is they don't want anything to be done about this issue because that takes away the ability to campaign on it. To speak to all of these matters and to give the position of the Tennessee Faith and Freedom Coalition, Aaron Gold-Branson joins us on the Matt Murphy Hotline this afternoon. Aaron, good to talk with you. Hope you're well, sir.
I'm doing well. How's it going?
I'm pretty good. You guys all right over there? They're already. I see you've got an event coming up on August 15th, and already you got protesters. That means that you guys. I mean, you haven't been around that long. You must be doing something right.
Yeah, well, we're coming up on our 1-year anniversary, so that's right. So in our and thank you so much for speaking at our last meeting in Williamson County. But our Williamson County Faith and Freedom Coalition is meeting at 5:30 on Tuesday, this upcoming Tuesday at the Williamson County Public Library, and our guest speakers are Congressman Andy Ogles and Senate Majority Leader Jack Johnson. Now, I do want to stress, if you are not going to that great WTN with all the hosts dinner in Hendersonville, is I believe where it is, then you should be at our event. But if you if you want to go hang out with the WTN guys, we're perfectly happy. However, the Tennessee Holler and a Marxist leftist anti-gun organization in Williamson County is planning on protesting us, and they're protesting us in large part due to the effectiveness of the work we're doing on child and human trafficking, but obviously also because Andy Ogles is coming to speak, and so is Leader Johnson. So it's an interesting thing. They're saying already, some of their people on Twitter are already saying that we're going to wind up canceling our event because we're afraid of them. Well, I can tell you right now, for everybody listening, we are not canceling. Jack Johnson will be there. Andy Ogles will be there, and we will educate the Marxists as well as the conservatives on child and human trafficking and the problem that is in this state.
I preface my next question by reminding people that Aaron and I are friends. I believe in his organization. I am so proud of the two Aarons, Spradlin and Gold-Branson, and their efforts to draw attention to human trafficking, to child trafficking, to sexual trafficking of all kinds. And I do. And I mean that sincerely. And I appreciate your friendship and what you're doing for the state of Tennessee. However, I'm going to ask you this. You just said steadfastly that you're not going to bend your meeting because of the will of the mob. Then why is the Tennessee Faith and Freedom Coalition asking the governor not to have a special session because of the mob?
Because there is another session going on in January that exists throughout the entire country, and if you look at the consensus of the General Assembly, at least what they've said publicly up until this point, they felt that a lot of the issues that were being raised, not the red flag law stuff, could have been handled in January. And so we drew very, very stark security concerns. Now, I will tell you, we still have security concerns, but we have been reassured by speaking with people in the governor's administration as well as people in law enforcement that, and I'm not going to pat myself on the back, but I do believe they reacted to our concerns. I mean, Governor Lee listened to our security concerns. His staff did, law enforcement did, and they're not going to release an exact plan, because why would you let the enemy know what you're doing in advance? But I am very, very satisfied on a lot of this, our concerns that we had on security. And so what you do when you take a situation where you disagree, you try to find what you can agree on, right? And so we had, like you said, we had asked the governor to cancel. And if I were sole ruler of the state of Tennessee, honestly, I probably wouldn't have a special session at this point in time. Now, we've made it perfectly clear that we oppose any and all red flag laws. If you notice, that's actually not in the governor's. It's open in the call, but it's not in his legislative priorities at the moment. But what is in there, and we said this on your show, I am going to take every single opportunity, as well as Aaron Spradlin is going to take every single opportunity to further the ball down the field to destroy child and human trafficking. And there is a priority coming from the governor in there, and it's also open in the call, of course. That is a great first step in our war against child and human trafficking. And I want to say the governor was very, very clear with us, and we made that commitment to work with him on child and human trafficking, as well as our good friends in the General Assembly. So that's what you do. You state your position, you hold firm on it. You also have to be nimble to keep moving the ball down the field. So we certainly are really, really excited about the idea, all concerns aside, about saving the lives of children, women, and even men when it comes to child and human trafficking.
Well, I'll say this. I thought of you yesterday when I read the call because of point number 5. And I don't pretend to know what's going on inside of the governor's head or the people that are working this up, but I thought of you because it's been a focus with the Tennessee Faith and Freedom Coalition. And his point number 5 on the issues that he wants addressed is reports from the Tennessee Bureau of Investigation regarding human trafficking. And there are a lot of other points that involve human trafficking, human smuggling, and this type of threat to public safety. And so I do think you made an impact. And this is the way that it should work, that if you have a concern about something, you address the concern, receptive government listens to that address, and then potentially adjusts what they're doing based on those concerns. I don't know if that is what happened in this case. I would like to believe that is exactly what happened in this case, recognizing that while red flag laws might be a non-starter in this special session for the governor or anyone else that wants them, and I'm not saying he does necessarily. I know they like to call them order of protection. I do think that there could be much focused on with regard to the issues that you guys over the Tennessee Faith and Freedom Coalition have focused on in the year of your existence.
Yes, sir. And I will say, I mean, I have no problem in saying this whatsoever. That clause in there would not exist if not for the work of the Tennessee Faith and Freedom Coalition, myself, Aaron Spradlin, others in grassroots support, but also the receptiveness and the commitment made by the governor's office on that issue. And again, this is a simple case of we had a wide-ranging discussion on our concerns on other issues, including the red flag law, made it very, very clear. But you know what we didn't do? We didn't go in there. We didn't go yell and scream. We didn't lie about what was going to happen in special session. We didn't curse on Twitter. We didn't threaten legislators. We didn't make a marketing campaign that says so-and-so is going to vote this way when they weren't. What we did was he had good, honest, adult, responsible, logical conversations and advocated for our positions. And you could see the results that we're getting here. Now, we have to review, obviously, the full legislation that comes forth from this special session, what's proposed in final form by the governor's office as well as other legislators, and we'll take positions on other issues. But this is a big, big step, and we're very, very proud of the fact that the work that we've done, along with several people in the governor's staff and the governor, has actually raised the daylights out of the awareness of this issue, and it's actually in a governor's priority. That is a big, big deal. You're not going to see many other organizations have that happen.
Do you obviously there are going to be protests? Do you remain hopeful? I think the governor has his security team in place. Obviously, you have a tremendous amount of resources, but I understand your concern that you expressed initially. I mean, a day or two after the governor indicated his desire for a call. Now it's official that there are people across this country that will descend on Tennessee to try to take advantage of a situation. They have no interest in solving anything except to take advantage of this situation. Are you comfortable being at the Capitol on the 21st?
Well, due to our good friends at Pale Horse GRS, I'm going to be very comfortable, as well as Tennessee Highway Patrol. It's one of those situations you can't go body for body in terms of guards with everybody in the General Assembly. So you will still see some sort of uncomfort. Now you're going to see the same discomfort in January, but these guys at Tennessee Highway Patrol and other agencies are more used to this stuff. They have adjusted their plans. They have made it so that they're doing everything they possibly can to make people safe. The left are going to go crazy. They're this thing. There's Bloomberg money coming into the state, and Jones is going to be walking around with a bullhorn. He's already promised that. And he's going to be, just an absolute terror. And, of course, you got Gloria Johnson trying to raise money and launch her campaign on the back of special session. What is very important, I want to make the point here, because we know the left stream media is not going to cover this in the right way. This underscores the broadcasting that you do and other conservative media does to shine the truth on what is going on in this special session. And if you look at what John Ray Clemens and other leftists are saying about the governor's call and their hysteria over, gun magazine bans not being made and other gun control measures not being made and the governor's priority, they are already stoking and revving their people up from the politician and then from the dark money Michael Bloomberg end.
Well, these cats on the left, whether it's John Ray Clemens or Jones or Gloria, they are attempting to make names for themselves on the backs of dead children. And that's the way that I'll say it, because they do not have any interest sitting down with the majority party in the state of Tennessee and seeing if there are places of common interest. I think there ought to be, but these three knuckleheads voted against SRO money in last session. So, they don't seem to have any interest outside of grabbing guns on addressing anything on this issue. And I know I'm preaching to the choir. I know you know this. You've seen them long enough.
Yeah, I mean, look at this. And this is the message from the Marxist left. And this is even the message a little bit, honestly, on the so-called right, a little bit, on some fringe organizations, where they use the same rhetoric regardless of the facts put in their face, and they double down and double down and double down and rev their people up with absolutely no intention of achieving anything or moving the ball down the field. And none of them, any of those people we're talking about, care a rip about child and human trafficking, which actually saves lives. It's not a made-up, bogus political point-scoring issue like we got to grab everybody's guns. It is a real problem, which we know you agree. I know I'm preaching to the choir on that one. But it's very important to note the Marxist left and all these gun grabbers could actually be saving lives if they were putting the same money and the same effort into fighting child and human trafficking. But they don't care. At best, they don't care. At worst, they enable it.
Aaron Gilbranson with the Tennessee Faith and Freedom Coalition. Aaron, appreciate you. We'll talk again very soon. Take care, my friend.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate
yes, sir.
you.
Absolutely. And that's how you do it, right? I mean, initially, the Tennessee Faith and Freedom Coalition had concerns about a call for a special session, particularly when the call was, or it seemed to be, solely focused on the idea of order of protection and red flag laws. But they took the opportunity to sit down with the governor and potentially open this up to more concerns that we have about public safety more broadly outside of school systems, or really some of this happens within the school system, regarding child trafficking, child smuggling, human smuggling. And we see this in the call. For those of you that want it all shut down, I would suggest red flag laws are going nowhere, but there are things that we can get out of some good government if we focus on these issues. One of the things, if you want something tangible, I want a bill out of this legislative session, out of this special session, that says you have to have an SRO in every school system within the next 16 months. That SRO has to be trained. If you want them to be a police officer, so be it. They can go through the police academies. Here's the money to hire them. Go hire them. And here are the expectations in terms of what we want you to have filled within 6 months, 12 months, 18 months. That is a tangible reaction to what we're seeing in Davidson County, where for whatever reason, politics or otherwise, Adrian Battle refuses to allow the elementary children in this county to be spared potential violence thanks to an SRO on present and accounted for on site. 52 after the hour on Super Talk. The Glock store is the one and only you'll hear me recommend. I love these guys. All of the Dans. There's a handful of Dans over there. Dan Jones, Dan Hughes, some other Dans, I'm sure. Let me tell you, the Dans are great people. Lenny McGill is great people. And the Glock store hires great people to help you. Whether you are an experienced handler of handguns or long guns, or you've never held one in your hands before, you walk through the Glock store, and they're going to treat you like family. They're going to just kind of assess where you are in terms of your Second Amendment or gun journey. And then off you go. They'll talk to you about your life experience. They'll get you trained up. They'll get you the gun that's right for you. And then the training session in their beautiful tactical shooting rooms will begin. They specialize in Glocks, but they have many different types of guns. They've got a lot of specialty parts. Friends, this is the place to go from tip to stern for all things guns in Nashville, Tennessee. It's the world-famous Glock store for a reason. Find out more at glockstore.com or shoot270.com or go by and see them on Air Lane Drive just off of Elm Hill Pike. Tell them Matt Murphy sent you to the world-famous Glock store.
From ABC News, I'm Michelle Franzen. A legal challenge involving former President Trump's Twitter posts dating back to January now made public in a new appeals court ruling in the special counsel's January 6th case. Special counsel Jack Smith issuing a search warrant earlier this year, giving Twitter 10 days to serve up the records for Trump's account. ABC's Stephen Portnoy has more.
The company pushed back on the prosecutor's demand that Twitter not tell Trump, saying that would violate Twitter's First Amendment rights. For its delayed response to the search warrant, a federal judge secretly fined the firm $350,000, a decision that's now been publicly upheld by the D.C. Circuit Court of Appeals.
Former President Trump facing a possible fourth indictment, this time in Georgia, over efforts to overturn the state presidential election results. Sources tell ABC News the Fulton County District Attorney has signaled she is ready to present her case to a grand jury as soon as next week. The governor of Hawaii issuing a state of emergency on Maui as winds from Hurricane Dora fuel wildfires. It's devastated the historic town of Lahaina and impacting tourists heading to the island.
On board heavily delayed flights waiting to leave LAX for Maui with uncertainty ahead. Many passengers on one flight opting to get off and remain in LA once the captain told them the island is burning and that they may have to stay in shelters. This man is waiting to go to Maui, uncertain what he'll do with hotels and shelters full.
Now I guess I'm just going to sleep in the rental car I got.
Communication from the island is limited and 911 service is down in areas. Hawaii's National Guard has been activated. Alex Stone, ABC News.
An American mom and her daughter kidnapped and held for almost 2 weeks by gangs in Haiti has been released. The Christian ministry group confirming Alex Dorsonville, who was working in Haiti as a nurse, and her young daughter were freed yesterday. No other details were offered. The family is asking for privacy. You're listening to ABC News.
All right, here we are. Here we go. It's hour number 2 of the Matt Murphy Show, Super Talk 99.7, WTN 105. Thank you for being with us on this Wednesday, August 9. It's our episode 395. They said it wouldn't last. We have Cameron Smith swinging by in the 2 o'clock hour. I'm working on a sit-down visit with the governor, on-air visit with the governor, and hopefully that'll happen before week's end, because I think it's so much more compelling to hear from his mouth, obviously, why he felt strongly enough about the issue of public safety to make a special session call, which became official yesterday. We will discuss that and have been discussing it throughout the course of the day today. I also should note we've got Congressman Mark Green coming on tomorrow. He's going to address issues of national security regarding the southern border. We'll talk with him about that, in addition to a number of other things tomorrow afternoon, starting at about 1 o'clock this time. We are pleased to be joined in studio by the Senate Majority Leader, Jack Johnson, who obviously joins us not to just talk about summertime and the start of football season, but we have a few other more. I wish... Maybe you, I don't know. Should we wish that that's what we were talking about? I mean, it is what it is.
I will say this. I bought a whole slew of University of Tennessee volunteer football tickets yesterday, actually. So I am getting ready for football season, and I have a son at UT, so it's a kind of a dual purpose. I get to go see my son, and we go to a football game.
This is where I start being nice to Jack Johnson, recognizing that my beloved Georgia Bulldogs will be coming to. I'm going to that game.
And I bought tickets.
I'm going to that game.
That's one you can't miss.
It will be my first experience at Neyland Stadium. I'm excited about getting over to Knoxville to Neyland Stadium. Should be a lot of fun.
100,000, 103,000 people, whatever it is. It is a massive place.
It is. I've seen it from the interstate. I've seen it from the river. I've never seen it from the inside. So we'll hopefully it'll be a good place both before, during, and after the game. Yes. I know that many Tennessee Volunteers don't want me to say that, but anyway.
Well, I participate in a tailgate at Circle Park there where they have a tent or something, so I'll make sure you get an invitation to stop by the...
I bet the Jack Johnson tailgates are as wild as they come.
It's not mine, but I do participate in it, so we'd love to have you stop by.
Oh, boy, oh, boy. I bet a Jack Johnson
the cops
tailgate...
have ever been called on that thing?
You know what? Did you see that thing that happened in Montgomery on the river down in Montgomery? I bet it's kind of like that, right?
It's a bunch of old guys like me sitting around getting ready for the game. It's kind of boring.
Sitting around talking about General Nealon. Well, we have heard about this all summer. We've talked about it all summer. The governor his office indicated to us some weeks ago. I asked a question of one of his folks. I said, "Is this happening 100%?" And she looked at me and said, 100%. And here it is. Your initial thoughts?
Well, yesterday was a big day, and we've talked about it, and you've talked about it a lot on your show, and others have as well. Yesterday was a big day because we got the call, and I'm using air quotes there, and the call is very important when you're going to have a special session. The governor has the constitutional authority to call us into special session for what are referred to as specific and extraordinary circumstances, and he gets to determine what those are. And in that call, he lays out what can be contemplated, what can be considered, the subject matter that can be discussed, or bills that can be filed during this special session. We received that yesterday. You've been talking about it. We've been reviewing it, going over it. We've had lots of conversations with the governor and his staff, so we now know what we can talk about.
Why is that important? Help us laymen understand the process, how a special session differs from the general session.
Sure. When we convene in January for our regular session, is how we would call that, a regular session of the General Assembly, any member can file any bill about any subject. If you're a member of the House and a member of the Senate, and you can get a Senate sponsor and a House sponsor, you can file a bill on just about any subject matter that you want, doing about anything that you want. Not so in a special session. That the call, as we keep referring to it, is typically very narrow, and this has more items on it than most calls for a special session. So there are a lot of things, you've been talking about them on the show, and your listeners can go and pull it up and actually read it for themselves if they want. But now this special session that will convene at 4 p.m. on August 21st, we can only deal with things that are articulated in this call.
Are there, and I read a good portion of the call as presented by the governor. I did not read all. I guess there are 18 specific issues or items brought up by the governor. Do you, as a General Assembly, get more specific language as to what you can do with those point-by-point items, or is it left up to you to determine which way to go in terms of drafting legislation.
Sure. So this call was precipitated largely by the governor and issues that he would like to address in the special session. So these would be things that the governor would like to see done. But he is also, as you know, he's been meeting and conferring with members of the General Assembly for the last several months. And they have been bringing up ideas and things that they think are important to be considered during the special session. And so this call reflects not only issues that the governor would like to see brought forward, but also things that members have approached him about that they would like to see addressed. So when you go through the 18 items that are there, some of those are addressing initiatives that the governor feels passionately about, and some of those are from members.
And I'm not trying to call an organization like the Tennessee Star out, but I'm going to mention them because I saw a headline earlier today that, I kind of scratched my head and thought, well, that's what we fight against on a regular basis. And once again, maybe it's just an oversight, but the headline said, hey, finally we've got the call to go into special session regarding red flag laws. And after reading this, I thought, well, that's not – I understand the order of protection is still in there as one of the 18 points, but this more broadly truly is dealing with public safety in the aftermath of Covenant. And I heard in talking with the governor, he said that he felt like the atmosphere was too emotional and too hot, and that's my word, not his. I don't think he used that word. It was too emotional in the waning days and weeks in the aftermath of Covenant in the General Assembly. And that's one of the reasons that he felt it important to go ahead and get this done, that we could deal with issues of public safety. And he indicated, he said, look, we can have a discussion about order of protection. I'm under no illusions as to where a lot of the members of the General Assembly are on that matter.
Including me.
Right. So I appreciate the fact that he broadened the call out to include all aspects of public safety and maybe getting a few things done that you weren't able to get done at the end of the session.
Right, and you explained that well. So the governor, if you listen to what he has said publicly over the last several months, he has said he wants a special session relative to public safety. Now, the one component of that a lot of people have talked about, including me, was the order of protection component. And I do not support that particular bill, and I don't think it has any chance of passing. The governor did include it in the call. It is not included as one of his initiatives, interestingly, though, that he wants to introduce as an administration bill, but it is in the call. But it's the session is not limited to that one issue. And frankly, I say with a great deal of confidence that the order of protection bill has zero chance of passing. It probably will be introduced in the Senate. I don't think it'll be introduced by a Republican. It might be introduced by a Democrat, but it has, again, zero chance of passing. But there are a lot of other things in there relative to public safety that I think we will have some conversations about.
What structurally, when this happens on the afternoon of August 21st, we anticipate that some Democrats, because they're very vocal in their opposition to anything having to do with anything that doesn't have to do with grabbing our guns. What can and can't they do with this session? Because there are some concerns by Tennesseans that they might try to subvert it or stymie it. I'm not talking about the protest outside. I'm talking about the Democrats inside. What can and can't they do?
So any member of the General Assembly, Democrat, Republican, or otherwise, can file any bill that fits this call. And by fit, what I mean is the bill has to be drafted such that this call, as drafted and submitted by the governor yesterday, whatever initiative they want to file and have considered has to fall within the parameters that have been set forth in this call. Now, some obvious things, gun controls such as an assault weapons ban or a high-capacity magazine ban, that will not fit the call. This call will not accommodate those types of bills. Really, the only thing, and I'm not an attorney, but as it's been explained to me by the attorneys that I work with, the only thing that has anything to do with guns is going to be item number 12 in the call, which is the temporary mental health order of protection bill. And that bill, again, I really don't think has any chance of passing. Virtually everything else, not virtually, everything else in there has to do with other aspects of public safety.
Do you think there is a Republican in the General Assembly that will carry the legislation? I mean, if it's not in the governor's initiative, right, it's going to take a member of the General Assembly to bring it up.
File it of their own initiative. Exactly.
And I'll read, I want to read point 12 real quick to make sure folks understand what we're talking about. There are 18 separate points in the governor's call to be addressed, potentially addressed, in the special session. Point 12. Temporary mental health orders of protection, which must be initiated by law enforcement, must require due process hearing, must require the respondent to undergo an assessment for suicidal or homicidal ideation, must require law enforcement to prove its case by clear and convincing evidence, must require that an order of protection be reevaluated at least every 180 days, and must not permit ex parte orders. That's pretty structured. That's pretty specific.
Very specific. And that's important because there are states out there. And again, today, Tennessee, and I don't see it happening anytime in the foreseeable future, is not going to pass an order of protection bill that results in you being dispossessed of your Second Amendment rights when you haven't committed a crime. That's how I define kind of red flag law. And to me, this rises to that, and it's why I cannot support it. However, there are states like California and some other left-leaning states that have order of protection laws on the books that are ex parte. What that means is someone can make an accusation about you, go to court, and tell the judge all kinds of things that aren't true about you, and that results in an order of protection that ends up with your guns being taken away. That's considered ex parte because you didn't even get a chance to defend yourself. The governor's being very clear that he would like an order of protection bill introduced, but it must include due process. I can't support it either way, but that's why that language is so specific.
I want to ask you a question about the structure of the special session and what we expect to be going on outside. I do want to get more into details about what you support and what you are most excited about tackling in the special session, but a question was brought to me, and I think it's a very good one. We hear a lot about outsiders coming into the state of Tennessee, utilizing this to create a national platform for their effort to diminish Second Amendment rights, gun ownership rights across the country, not just in Tennessee. We hear a lot about that. And I expect that they will be here en masse. That is not a reason not to have a special session, and I've expressed my opinion. I think you agree with it.
I do.
So is there a way for you to separate invested Tennesseans getting into the chamber versus individuals from other parts of the country getting into the chamber? In other words, I believe I'm right that it's a first come, first serve opportunity.
That's correct.
Is there a way to say, hey, we want to make sure that Tennesseans get to see their government in action first, and we're going to prioritize Tennesseans above people from other parts of the country?
I would support that 1,000% because I think it is the right thing to do. I'm concerned about Tennesseans and what they think, even if I disagree with them, more so than I am someone who's being bussed in here by George Soros from California or Illinois or New York. The issue, and it has come up, and I won't say this with great legal authority, but there are issues when you make a building accessible to the public to exclude certain people versus others based on from where they hail. But I would support that 1,000%. I just don't know if it's plausible.
It would be something to look into from a legal standpoint, and I get what you're saying because it creates another dynamic of security, right? Where you're expecting that not only will security make sure that people aren't bringing bad things into the building, but they also are the right people coming into the building. And now we're checking IDs and we're doing all these sorts of things. I understand logistically it's difficult. It was just a thought that was brought to me, and I thought it merited asking you about.
Yeah, and by the way, we used to check IDs when people came into Legislative Plaza, where we used to office, and into the Capitol, and I think they're considering doing that again. Not to say that they're going to keep someone from out of state from coming in, but I do think it's important that we know the identity of the people coming in.
While we're addressing it, are you comfortable with everything? I mean, I'm certain that you, along with Cameron Sexton over in the House side, have been in consultation with the security apparatus at the Capitol. I'm certain you're confident that they've got all of that handled.
I have absolute confidence and faith in our Tennessee troopers, our state troopers that do an amazing job of protecting the Capitol. If necessary, I've been there when we had National Guard troops on standby to protect the Capitol. But no matter who it is, protesters are not going to keep us from conducting the people's business.
Many Democrats in the minority have already declared this special session a failure. I heard the Justin Jones, Gloria Johnson, who I think is attempting to parlay this into some sort of Senate run so that she can get destroyed by Marsha Blackburn next year. But what is your response to their declaration that the governor has already, I think Jones said that the governor has already conceded to the radical right-wing Republicans on this special session? What's your response?
Well, I would say the governor's done exactly what he said he was going to do. He has been very consistent in saying he wants a special session to deal with public safety. He's also been very consistent in saying he supports an order of protection bill. I can't support his order of protection bill, and I think it has zero chance of passing. But he has never said that this is a gun control session. He's never once said that he supports banning weapons or creating additional impediments to law-abiding citizens from being able to obtain weapons, anything that we would consider an infringement upon Second Amendment rights. So no, I think the governor's been very consistent, even though I've disagreed with him about elements of the special session and so forth. But I think he's been very consistent in what he's talked about.
Senate Majority Leader Jack Johnson with us. I will ask Jack after the break what items draws his eye. What does he think should be the priority in a special session coming up on August 21st? We'll do that next. It's 1:20 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Super Talk 99.7 WTN, Matt Murphy and you, and Senator Jack Johnson. If you have any questions for the Senate Majority Leader, now's the time to throw them in there. 615-737-9986. 615-737-WWTN. I do appreciate your participation, and if you've got a call then or a question, then now's the time to get it in. Jack, what on this call are you focusing in on? There's a lot to digest. What, if anything, do you believe ought to be prioritized in the special session?
Well, I'll start with, and these are in no particular order because I think these are all important priorities, but certainly the TBI report relative to human trafficking that I heard parts of your interview with Aaron Goldbertson from Tennessee Faith and Freedom. That's certainly something that I think is important. We're talking public safety, and certainly the human trafficking epidemic that we have in our state and our nation is a big part of that. If we're going to talk about protecting kids, how about kids that are being trafficked for sexual exposure and human trafficking and smuggling and so forth. The other thing, and we've talked about this before on your show, but it's when we're talking about public safety, we have to address mental health. We have to address access to mental health treatment, and that's going to be, I think, a big part of the conversation. And I'm looking for the line here on the call. But effectively, what the governor is going to ask us to do is to apply for a waiver through our TennCare program for additional funding for mental health providers. We are reimbursing. Here's an interesting tidbit that your listening audience might find interesting. Of those people that are receiving mental health treatment in the state of Tennessee, over 50% of them are on our TennCare population, meaning that's our Medicaid program. Kind of makes sense. These are people probably struggling to keep a job, be productive members of society, and so they fall into eligibility for TennCare. We are reimbursing providers through our TennCare program at 80 cents on the dollar. That is shameful. And not only should we be reimbursing at least at cost, but it probably needs to be even more than that. So I think the mental health aspect of it is something that I take a particular interest in.
I think you can tell a lot about a relationship, whether it be two friends, colleagues, or a lawmaker and a talk show host, not when they agree, but when they disagree mildly on certain things. You and I had a conversation about eliminating sales taxes on gun safes.
And you won.
Is that going to be back?
Yeah, it's in here. It's in the call. Absolutely.
And you said, and look, I appreciated what you said, that we are a state that relies primarily on sales taxes and other other forms of taxation. And by the way, if I can, just a quick aside, y'all understand where you live. And I got a reminder of where we live and how good it is in the state of Tennessee. I'm not just here to shine the state of Tennessee and to say everything's rosy and wonderful, but I had to re-register my truck, get my new license plate in Wilson County. I was in Davidson County for the first year that I was here when I had a new plate. And I went to the Wilson County tag office. And I got a nice truck. It's a nice GMC. In the state, all I can tell you folks is this. In the state of Alabama, my Ford F-150 was costing me roughly $280 a year. You know how much it cost me to register my GMC?
Somewhere around $50.
$31.50. And you know what I did? And this is me, right? Is this right? I said, is this right? She goes, yes, sir. I was like, well, thank you very much. So that to say, kudos for you guys for keeping our taxation low. Thank you.
Yes. Well, here it is in the governor's initiative. So we have the call, which has been issued by the governor. Then we have his specific initiatives. But number 7 on that list, promoting safe storage, eliminates taxes on firearm safes and safety devices, provides free gun locks, expands safe storage training and state-approved safety courses. So you took us to task for eliminating the sales tax on gun safes back at the end of session, and the governor's proposing, and it hadn't been passed, but I will certainly support it. The governor's proposing that we make that permanent.
Can we mark this bell? The Senate Majority Leader just said I won that argument, which is it doesn't happen often and never with my wife, and not often with a politician. But
he looks a little woozy.
There you go. I asked this question, and I don't know if there's any more specific information on it, but we talk about school safety planning. And that was number 2 on the governor's call. Number 1, mental health resources, providers, commitments, and services. Number 2, school safety plans or policies. We live here we're sitting here in Davidson County. I know you're down in Williamson. I'm over in Wilson. In Davidson County, it's been much discussed that for whatever reason, and we can't get her on to talk about it, Dr. Battle has decided that she does not care for the concept of SROs in elementary schools. She's well on record stating that. Chief John Drake of the Metro Nashville Police Department, although the state provided the funding to spend specifically on these SROs, has said, well, we don't feel like we can do that. We're not going to take the money because we've only got 12 months. And I won't drag you into that argument because I think it's specious. Is it time for the state? I know y'all are loath to take over local rule. Is it time for the state to look at passing legislation requiring SROs in all of our public schools?
I think we have to look at it. And you bring up a good point. Anytime we do something like that, whether it's reducing the size of the Metro Council, whether it's restructuring the Airport Authority Board, that these things do get litigated and there are constitutional issues. However, from a philosophical standpoint, absolutely. There's no excuse for every elementary school in Nashville to not have a school resource
because
officer.
Not to interrupt you, but the excuse long was we can't afford it.
Right.
And you took away that by providing money from the state, and they're still saying they can't do it.
We will pay for it. And this comes from personal experience. I have 3 kids that all went K through 12 in Williams County. They had an SRO in their school, every day that they were there, from kindergarten all the way through high school. And they loved their SRO. The school resource officers do so much for that school community. And it breaks down barriers between people who may otherwise have fear of law enforcement and builds that bonding relationship. These school resource officers provide such a valuable service, including providing a level of security, armed security on premises, which is very important. But they do so much more in these school communities. So I would absolutely support that. I'd have to confer with our legal counsel about the constitutionality of it, but there's no excuse for Nashville or any community in the state of Tennessee, a public school setting, to say we're not going to have a school resource officer.
You know, I think we understand better now the way that the political left thinks about this issue since we had Senator Heidi Campbell on. In her run for mayor, she came on with us and answered the question, and I think she inadvertently allowed us into the thinking of someone that's a little left of center on this. She called having SROs in public schools militarizing the schools.
That's a term they have used many times, which is baffling to me.
It's ridiculous. If there's you spoke to it a minute ago, if there's a perception within communities that the police are bad guys, then we don't need to agree with that perception. We need to figure out why it exists and try to do everything we can to break that perception down and to help youngsters understand police are the good guys that are there to help you and to serve the public.
Absolutely. And again, I speak from experience with this with all three of my kids, that I remember showing up to drop the kids off at school, and the SRO is out there and he's high-fiving the kids, or she is, and she or she is giving them hugs, and they were just such an incredible part of that community and did such amazing. It came up during committee when we were passing this legislation. I sponsored the legislation to put the SROs in every public school, and a Democrat on one of the committees spoke to this issue of militarizing the schools. And I had the Commissioner of Public Safety, Jeff Long, former sheriff of Williamson County. The sheriff is over the SRO program, and I had him come up and testify at some length about the value and benefits of having these SROs in these schools, and he did an amazing job.
Well, plenty more to break down. We'll have you on from time to time. We lean on you during these times. We appreciate you coming on with us and kind of breaking it down from your perspective, and we'll talk again very soon, Jack.
Great. Thanks, Matt.
There's Senator Jack Johnson. We'll be back in a moment. It's 1:32 on Super Talk. And Senator Jack Johnson was so nice to me. He said, hey, I can tell you're losing weight. You talk about it on the radio, and I can see it in person. And I said, thank you, Jack. And he said, you're welcome, Matt. And, one of the reasons that I'm losing the weight that I'm losing is through eating delicious spices at Savory Spice. Here's the connection. So Holly and David, they create incredible blends of salts and spices and peppers and different things that give food a little kick. And invariably, when you're trying to lose weight and you're eating a lot of veggies, that can get a little bland. So I've got a veggie blend from Savory Spice I want to recommend to you. I've also got the street corn blend that can be used for a lot of different things outside of street corn. These are two ways that I kind of kick that food game up into the next gear. You're still eating low-calorie foods, but it has the flavor that you've come to expect. And I thank you to Savory Spice. I say it a lot, and there's a reason for it. You up your food game by upping your spice game, and you up your spice game at Savory Spice. 2 locations. One is in L&L Market, right off of Charlotte Pike. Go there, say hello to Holly or David, or right in the square in Franklin, right beside Gray's Pharmacy. You'll see them right there at Savory Spice. Tell them Matt Murphy sent you to the one and only Savory Spice. Super Talk 99.7 WTN investing a good portion of the show discussing the special session of the Tennessee General Assembly called by the governor of the state dealing with public safety issues, to include mental health issues, to include human smuggling issues, and to include the possibility of a quote-unquote order of protection, which everyone that I talk to tells me is dead on arrival, because that would, at least from a perception standpoint, seem to be a violation of one's Second Amendment rights before you have done anything to cause a curtailing of said rights. I mean, that's what it's all about, right? That if you've not committed an overt act, the reason that we don't allow felons, and by the way, you can participate in this, 615-737-9986, you're invited. Hey, Bell.
I just wanted to let people know I'm aware that the video is not working, and we're doing our best to get it fixed on Twitch, Twitter, Facebook, and
Are you
YouTube.
I think your really, really subtle suggestion is that Jack Johnson broke YouTube and Twitter.
No, it's your camera that's not working. His was still fine. I think it just finally died from the stress of the face.
That might be true. You know, there are many that have died from the stress of this face. Hi.
But back
Hi,
to
Mom.
what you were saying before, people are looking at this as simply a Second Amendment right. It's also a due process issue.
Right.
You have a right to due process, and you don't get that's not curtailed just because somebody else says something.
Well, and I'm willing to talk about the moment. And the struggle is this. On the political left, they just want your guns because it helps them politically and it helps them ideologically. They believe that this society will be better subjected to the desires of the centralized government if they are an unarmed society. They believe that. They will not admit that, but they believe it. Through their actions, every day, they work toward that end. They want to disarm the public so as to better control the public. Let's be clear about what their desires are. Yet on the right, and here's where I whip out the wet noodle and I lash my friends who are conservatives, on the right, they like to talk about mental health, but I'm asking, what are we going to do about it? The rubber meets the road when you tell me that it's time to curtail individual rights because of mental health issues prior to the commission of a crime and how that works functionally. And the reality is, folks, it doesn't. It is what no one wants to say, but I'm willing to call the baby ugly. Until you commit an overt act that is in violation of others' rights, it is extremely difficult and dangerous to deny you your rights. Now, I'm willing to talk about these things. At what time does it make sense that someone has spoken in a fashion or acted in a fashion that potentially could... Hey, Bell. All right. Hey, how are you? Nice to see you. Oh, look, you're probably on camera. Are you still on camera over there? Hey, Bell's in here. Bell, I don't know what he's doing. I thought he was coming in here to try to curtail or violate my human rights.
No, I only do that off air.
Yeah, that's true. Well, that's not true. You do it on air, too. Point being, to preemptively act as an agent of the government in a fashion that would deny you one right, my suggestion has always been that if you've done something so overt, not the commission of a criminal act, but you've acted in such a way where you are determined to be an immediate danger to yourself or an immediate danger to other people, then why am I only curtailing your Second Amendment rights? If your action is so egregious prior to the violation of any crime or the commission of any crime, if your actions are so egregious that it rises to the level of curtailing your Second Amendment rights, then I would think that we should curtail other rights as well, to include due process. But that has to be a high standard, man. That's got to be way up there. Now, 7204 brings up an excellent point. People on certain medications shouldn't have guns. Well, which medications are those? And who makes those determinations? The path to hell is paved with good intentions. So while we might have great intentions in our I'll give you another example. There are people who are sitting in this listening audience that believe that if you're on hormone therapy or some sort of puberty blockers or whatever it might be with regard to transgender issues, that might